Krupa, and I am the program manager with the Innovate Bio grant at Austin Community College in Austin, Texas. Innovate Bio is a national advanced technological education center focused on biotechnology. Both Innovate Bio and this series of talks are funded by the National Science Foundation. We encourage and support ideas and innovations you have for educating biotechnicians and encourage you to consider applying for ATE funding. Please feel free to reach out to us. Before I begin, I have a couple of housekeeping announcements. The two presentations will be back to back, followed by a question and answer session. Please feel free to use the chat box to jot down questions. And lastly, additional information about future ATE project talks can be found on the Innovate Bio website, which we will put in the chat. Thank you. It is ATE talk speaker, Barry Bates. I'm sorry, my camera
you out.
His presentation is titled Building a Biotech Program in Atlanta, where he will talk about the project goals, objectives, and the challenges he's experienced so far. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone. And good afternoon, good morning. And I will go ahead and share my screen. So as was just stated in the introduction, again, my name is Barry Bates. I'm Program Coordinator for Bioscience Technology at Atlanta Technical College. And so we are basically almost in the epicenter of the city of Atlanta. We're literally 5 minutes from downtown, or maybe a little bit more in terms of driving, if there's no traffic from downtown. And as you know, Atlanta is we got a lot of things going on in the city, a lot of technology. So we are known for currently a lot of startups, especially in the tech area, especially in the Southeast, a lot of fintech. Bioscience, biotechnology is growing, but also from a startup. So anybody who's interested in startups, Atlanta is the place to come. And as you also are aware, we're having or hosting the 2026 World Cup in Atlanta and other places. And so there's a lot of things going on. One of the things that's very interesting, though, even with all of the events and the technology and all these things, so much of our population here and our residents here are clueless to a lot of things that are happening in the city of Atlanta and the opportunities. And so this especially holds true in this particular field of bioscience. In our particular area, bioscience is not a household word, so it's been extremely challenging in terms of just getting really people to understand more and more about bioscience, but mainly I'm talking and specifically mentioning about the community and the residents surrounding our college, and especially within the city of Atlanta. So our project, even though we have a bioscience technology program, but our project is focusing on, how do we reach the next generation? How do we reach students, especially in areas of biology? So we were fortunate to receive a new to ATE project funding. So it's a small amount of money to get started with. But those funds for our particular project are earmarked towards getting dual enrollment students to learn about the opportunities that exist in bioscience in our particular area, and for the number of life science companies and technician level positions that exist. And we want students to be aware of just other opportunities that exist outside of maybe some of the things that they have been thinking about. And a lot of this was birthed out of just my own experiences being in the biosciences over a number of years, and experience in the lab, experience in corporate settings, experience working with pharmaceutical companies and so forth. So bringing work experience and just overall laboratory experience into this project. So, I have a few things I can contribute to this, but really want to transform all these experiences into a reality for our students. And so I borrowed this picture from somebody off the website because it just um, grabs kind of like where our students are, and the focus, but at the same time, is kind of seems to be a fun moment for them doing something in the lab. Looks like they may be playing around, but or they don't look as serious. But that's actually what I wanted to capture and what I wanted to be able to show with these students. So I start off a lot of times, and I'm showing you a presentation that I do for high schools, especially for those administrators, students, whomever. It's kind of a general presentation, so I'm going to borrow some of the elements from here. Um, and so I have a picture for them to really understand. And the reason I have Dr. Kazmikia Corbin on here is because I want the students to be able to understand and look at individuals who are making major contributions in the areas of bioscience. Because again, with them not having a definition for bioscience and awareness and understanding of bioscience, they really don't know the impact, especially the impact that bioscience has in their everyday lives. And so part of my project is to make bioscience practical and for students to really see, wow, this is actually in my own home. I'm experiencing different things in bioscience and really get it to a level where it's not just some way out there science, but it's something where it's tangible, something that they can relate to, and they can understand and they can explain things to their parents. So that's the overall goal of this project: make it more meaningful to the students and have the students be able to see themselves working in this field. And so by exposing them with individuals in the field and exposing them to industry, getting the students to really be immersed in what this field is like, kind of shortens the time frame that we have to work with them and enable them to begin to see themselves doing something. And so we have repeated exposure in so many different capacities. Hopefully they will think and see themselves, oh, this is not so foreign. This is something I can do. And so I have this slide because, again, and I had another caption, and my original caption was taking them from here to there. But I changed it for another presentation. I said, wanted, I'm looking for your students or looking for students that want to do something different in life. So we have conversations with students. What do you want to do? We go to these career fairs. So we're always constantly going to career fairs, and we have 30 seconds with students. And so, what do you want to do? I don't know. Thinking about this, I don't know. And a lot of students are really unsure. And I understand. In high school, we expected them to plot out a 30-year course of a career for them, and they really don't know. Some may be a little bit more focused or think they are at the time, but they're, of course, they're not looking at trends and outlook and different things and whether something's going to be obsolete in 5 years from now. So, of course, they can't see that far. But overall, being in a laboratory environment and you're kind of familiar with kind of the temperament and the mentality that is needed just to be involved in this type of area. And so we're looking for these students that I want to do something. I don't quite know what it is. I know I want to be involved with solving problems. I want to be able to work with my hands, and I want something that's different, off the beaten path. Those are the students that we want. We're not looking for 4.0 students. We're looking for those students who almost, I don't really care about the grade point average right now. I'm just looking for students that have an interest, but who have a capacity to want to understand and learn. And it's kind of hard to explain to a student and to administrator, but we're looking for students that have hands. And so, of course, if you've been in the lab, you're looking for is great. If you have technicians or lab techs, or you have somebody there that has hands, they're really gifted in terms of making experiments work, being able to go through protocols and just making things happen and be able to produce the type of data that one is needing. Those are the type of students I want to be able to train. Those are the students that we're looking to identify. So I'm trying to cast this net really, really wide, but really trying to pique the interest of students because I know that out of this wide net, a few of them, everywhere that we go, are going to be really intrigued about what we're doing. That works for us. Okay. And so I reference, of course, this particular project. the workforce meeting that we had last year. And I just added this recently because of the fact that as I'm talking to counselors, as I'm talking to administrators and teachers, I want them to know that, yes, we are on top of really understanding the trends and the needs. And so this is just not some fly by night project. We're really serious and really understand the direction that we're going. And so we're trying to also educate the administrators, the teachers, and so forth about kind of like the trends, especially in this particular area. Again, it's that same photo again, starting with the typical high school students, again, taking the students from here to there. Um, and this is built upon the students' desire as they're seeing and encountering different things in society. And as they may be seeing themselves, what do you want to do? I don't know. And they may be confronted with all these things that may be very fearful to them or might not have any answers. You know, we were just talking about climate change, food security, or I should say food insecurity, sustainable agriculture. These are all key points and key factors that, of course, all of us on this call are quite aware of, but for maybe students, these are things that they might not quite understand or they may want to be a part. And I do believe that a lot of students, especially high school students, do want to be a part of something where there's meaningful change, but they don't know where to start. In my particular area, especially with students, anything in the lab, anything in science is so foreign to them. There's a lot of pushback away from it. And I'll get into this a little bit later in the talk about the pushback. And so there is some type of intimidation at times about the science. And so again, this is where our project comes in. We really want to break down those fears and be able to again show that the project's more relatable. So it's all about making a difference and helping the students to see that what they can do. So I'm always getting this question, and I know it's a big question, is basically what is bioscience? Well, we know the definition of biology, you know, study of living things, but what about bioscience? Again, because this is still a term that is somewhat foreign to a lot of individuals. So we define it as being able to look at the application of what living things can do to be able to solve all these different problems that we have on so many different levels. And this is what makes it attractive to individuals who really want to be involved with something where you can really solve a meaningful problem. And I reference things like, for example, we have all of these new medicines that are biologically derived. Of course, the COVID vaccine is one, but just recently, December, January, they approved two new drugs using gene editing technologies for sickle cell, for treatment of sickle cell, different things like that. And so we try to also take high level concepts in science and application, really bring them down to a level that says this is what's going on. You can see this in your family, but you can also be a part of making a difference. So we talk about I briefly mentioned how bioscience impacts cosmetic industry. The whole idea about COVID was 100% pure bioscience, really getting them to see, oh, I can relate. We know so much about COVID doing all of this. Well, guess what? From start to finish, that involved bioscience. Again, make it more practical. Here in Atlanta, we have a very famous restaurant. It's a plant-based restaurant. It's called Slutty Vegan. And they are now in New York and expanding different places. And so they make burgers, fries, everything is plant-based. They were originally Impossible Burgers. Then they went to Beyond Meat. I'm not sure where they are. But again, showing the connection, because they're actually pretty good, but showing the connection between bioscience and, again, things that they can relate to in their everyday life. And so I don't want initially, as we approach this, to be so heavy science in our presentation, because I'm focusing more and more on helping the students to see this is where you can make a change. These are areas that you can make an impact in without, intimidating them so much of the lab. And it was actually last summer, and I don't remember if it was a high tech conference. I believe it may have been, I think it was high tech, or it may have been at the summit. I'm trying to remember. Somebody did a really nice presentation, and it showed a subway map of the pathways far as the careers and different things through the program and made it very visually appealing. And they did so in such a way where you don't get into all of the heavy duty science about the program. And I took that and it's like, oh, let me glean from this because I like the approach. And they softened the approach so much that made it more and more attractive to students. And apparently they're having some success. So that's what I wanted to do that here. And I really wanted to soften the approach and come at this from a totally different perspective. Our vision of the science of the Bioscience Emerging Technician Project here is basically we want to increase the knowledge of the career opportunities, but we also want to specifically target historically underserved individuals in the metropolitan Atlanta area. So, for example, in our particular area, we're a dead center in the city of Atlanta, so we have a heavy African American population. The college that I'm at, we have on average 91, 92% African American population, followed by Latinos, and then a mixture of other individuals. And so we have a diverse population here at the school. And I want students that are particularly dealing with STEM and in these diverse groups where STEM may be lacking. And I know that, we have some schools that are certified STEM, but even in those schools that we're trying to target and let them know, hey, there's some other opportunities, it takes a little bit longer for them to grab onto what we're doing in terms of bioscience. So it's been one of the challenges. Now I'll get into that. So, and actually I'll get into this now. So when we talk about our goals for our particular project, as I can say here, the motivation is to focus on underrepresented groups where, again, vast underexposure to this, especially with the school systems that are here. From the beginning, our goal was to, and it still is, to recruit dual enrollment students from selected area high schools to participate in the project. And what I mean by selected, those who would really just be able to sign up. In the city of Atlanta, we have what we call our service delivery area. That means schools that we can target, and those are within the city of Atlanta and is actually in two other counties surrounding us. So we overlap 3 school districts, and so we're targeting each of these districts. And so this has been really, one of our challenges, and that is we have engagement, we have talks, we have enthusiastic individuals from the school, whether they are from administrators of the district, teachers, career and technical education directors, the whole gamut. In terms of that, we get a lot of exposure. But one of the things and one of the biggest challenges, and really just trying to help with the overcoming this, and that is the follow-up conversations. Okay, great, you want to be a part of this, and so when we go do the follow-up conversations, we don't hear anything. Is like crickets. It's like, okay, we were trying to be involved, and so very, 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 very few programs have been able to do that, because part of the recruitment was to do site visits to the school, to be presentations and so forth. And I just did another presentation a few days ago, say, oh yes, we want you to come out. Yeah. And so I'm following up. Okay, let's do the next step. When is a good time? Or send me the information. Great. When is a good time? Follow up. And that has really been a really big challenge. And so it makes it, because we have to go through the barrier of going through the schools, the teachers, and so forth. It makes it a challenge to reach the students. I've had a couple of schools say, I really want you to be able to present this to our students in their classes. So I do have more schools this time around, who are really interested, and we're kind of working on those last bit of details about that. The other thing, another significant challenge, is in the state of Georgia, the rules for dual enrollment have changed from once we first started. And I had 2 daughters that they're about to graduate. One has graduated from school, and one is about to graduate from college another year or so, a couple of years. When they were in high school, they took advantage of dual enrollment. And dual enrollment initially, if you were in high school and you had a decent GPA, you could participate in dual enrollment, take basically anything you want. And a lot of students would actually finish an associate's degree in college, in high school, because of dual enrollment. Well, the state a few years ago cut all of that out. And so they said, well, we're going to cap you at 30 college credit hours. And then on top of that, the entry for dual enrollment was now limited to juniors and seniors in college. You could do it as a sophomore, but you would have to have a 1250 on the SAT. I was like, wow, 1250 SAT as a sophomore in college. Most students are still taking the PSAT, and you want a 1250 SAT as a sophomore in college. And so we didn't know this at the time that we submitted a proposal, nor were we aware of the changes. And so these are things that was like, wow, we were trying to reach a certain population, and so making it more accessible to schools. And so the long story short is that we had to learn a lot in a very, very short period of time about one, the dual enrollment parameters, which we thought were going to be a lot more simpler as they had been in the past. And then number two, dealing with the gatekeepers at these schools, getting past them, and really also educating them about bioscience. The goal, of course, is as we work with these schools to really be able to bring the students on board and overall get them in front and have them engage with bioscience professionals in training so that by the time they do finish the project, they would have acquired one of the certificates that we offer in our bioscience program to make them workforce ready. Or if they decide to pursue a bachelor's degree, they now have the advantage of being able to do so. I don't know how I am on time. I forgot my stopwatch. Um, but and I'll sum it up really quickly. So one, students, because of our curriculum in the schools, they're not really getting the exposure to bioscience. However, in the workforce, they're looking for industry, they're looking for personnel, they're looking for individuals that have a training in bioscience. So we have this disconnect. And so this is where we're trying to come in to provide the training that the workforce needs. We have to have the exposure because the workforce says, hey, we need students, but we have to have individuals to have the exposure to even know that this workforce exist, which is one of the problems. Again, overall design was that we want to connect industry to the classroom through our particular project and not just doing lab assignments, not just doing these things, but where they get a chance to see behind the scenes. They go on industry tours, they talk to individuals in industry all the time. They get a chance to see diverse individuals in industry. And so we're really trying to expand what they see, what they perceive about the life science industry or about bioscience through this particular project. Of course, we can't reach everybody, but at least hopefully we can make an impact with the few that we do touch. Again, it's just some other areas that we want to impact, and at the same time, that helps industry to begin to see some of the things that they may need to do or contribute to help prepare future workforce. I know there's so much data on the early exposure, especially through K through 12 education. We know this ad nauseum in terms of all of the research that's been done on that. But even all that we've done and all the money that's been thrown in this, why do we still have a disconnect? Why are we still lacking? So there's some other things that need to be addressed, and that's why we're all here working on these things as we're aware of. So one of the things really quickly about our program, one of the things that sets us apart is we have a summer laboratory enrichment part where we immerse them in different types of laboratory experiments and settings, not so much that we can ooh and ah them, but we're targeting and looking at real world problems and showing how the examples that they're working in labs are applied towards solving problems in things like education or the environment or tracking diseases or whatever it may be. And so we have targeted labs, specific labs towards that. And as they complete these labs, they now enter into our certificate program, whereby we also have a soft skills program, a curriculum built into our particular project. Um, Again, and this is taught by an individual who actually works in industry and who is a hiring manager and has developed a higher level soft skills training for the American Cancer Society that he offers, which has been well received. And so we're using that, watered it down for our high school students. And this is just showing the typical pathway for students, where they start, where they end up as far as careers. Um, for students, for participants, as an incentive, one being access to careers, number two, the certificate. We are able to provide them with iPads along with keyboards to, again, give them the digital resources that they need, not necessarily a stipend. We don't do that. we need more time to really go into that, but really wanted to hand them something to support them with our virtual courses. And of course, when we are in our own face-to-face or in-person lessons. Okay. And so that's kind of a summary in a sense of our particular project. And this is me, principal investigator, and I have a co-investigator or co-PI who's not available today. So that's where I am. And I apologize if I took up too much time.
Thank you, Barry. At this time, I would like to introduce our second Project Talk speaker, Dr. Karen Leung. Her presentation is titled Building Inclusive Labs, a Collaborative Approach to Work-Based Learning. This talk highlights experiences with working in close partnerships with a major employer, changing the dynamic of working with industry from charity to professional development, and provide a series of related resources. Welcome.
Thank you, Dion. Barry, if you don't mind, if you can stop sharing. No worries at all. Beautiful slides, by the way, really.
Thank you.
I love a good visual presentation. I'm like, ooh, that's going to be a hard act to follow. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's really interesting hearing Barry's talk and thinking about that in sort of in contrast or comparison to what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm Karen Leung. I'm from City College of San Francisco, which has had a really long-running biotechnology program, one of the longest in the state of California. It's been well over 20 years. And then so I was thinking like really, and it's actually something I still think about. I think we've been, how do you get people to understand what bioscience is? And I can imagine, I know that it's hard to figure that out in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so like, I can only imagine, right? It's like, we're like 20 years in and people are just like, what's that? And you're like, it's most of our economy, past Silicon Valley. So it's really, yeah. So beautiful idea. But I want to tell you I think there's multiple stages we think about as in our biotech programs, which is like there's awareness and getting them into the pipeline. And really what I'm going to talk about actually is the retention at the end of the pipeline today. And so the program at City College of San Francisco, again, biotech has been around for well over 20 years, for many of years, which I was not part of whatsoever. However, when I did come to the program in about the last 10 years ago, this piece had been built out, which was, sort of the technical skills training that all of our programs develop, an internship program, which has actually been around for 17 years now, and thinking about sort of employability skills and support and networking communication skills. But that's when I kind of came on board and sort of an amazing group of people to get to work with, but us thinking about continuing to improve work-based learning in particular, that segment where our students are going from the classroom into the workforce, so important. We know this from lots of research, right? Undergraduate research experience is really important. Being in the workplace is really important. And you can see that this can make or break a student in many ways. If they have a really positive experience, maybe they get a job right away, but it really can solidify their desire to stay in that field. Whereas if they have a bad experience, it can completely destroy it. And coming into this internship program, which was amazing, and had all these pieces already, we really found that one of the things that was so critical in making this make or break situation around the internship was the working relationship that was being built between that student and their mentor, right? The person who's actually supervising them in their first sort of real world lab experience. And I won't go into a lot of details in this, happy to talk about it more, but it became clear that this was foundational to student success. And initially we were like, okay, so how do we improve that? And our very first thought, which I'll show you in a second, was really, well, we need better mentors. So we're going to train for better mentors. And then we sort of realized, well, that's great. And if we train for better mentors and our students get better internships with better mentors, they're still going to go walk into situations where they don't have better mentors, or they don't have better bosses or employers, and they need to learn how to navigate that space as well. So that's sort of, this is sort of trying to put many years into a small bucket. But that's the general idea, what I'm hoping to convey, and hopefully it comes across somewhat clearly. So myself and James Lewis have been the ones really working on the City College of San Francisco side, the CCSF side, and our biotech program on this effort. But we've been doing it in collaboration with Dr. Laurence Clement and Naliti Saul at UCSF, the University of California, San Francisco, which is a major biotechnician employer. It's actually the second largest employer in San Francisco. And it's a major research university. And we came together thinking about how do we, what could we do? Maybe what kind of training could we develop to improve work-based learning, and specifically just the working relationships that happen in science. And so over the last 8 years and 2 NSF grants, what we've really done is try to build a parallel training and build resources and tools to support dyads, so those intern mentors, while they're in that relationship, to practice new skills and improve their capacity to build strong relationships, not just during that internship time, but throughout, in hopes that this will be better environment for all of our students moving into. So during that time, we've built 2 parallel trainings. One that's for the mentor manager. And I will just say quickly, for probably all of you who have been in academia, totally understand that generally management training is not part of the academic situation. And yet somehow everybody, most people who with PhD at some point will manage other people. And so how critical sort of getting training in that space may be, that's an area we really saw a lot of need for. And then on the other side, the parallel, which is for students moving into to workplaces, especially science workplaces, how do they navigate that space in order to set themselves up to succeed if someone else isn't, or maybe not doing a full job of setting them up to succeed. In those years, for the mentor manager training, we've gone through 13 iterations of this training. We've trained over 1,000 scientists from over 75 companies and 45 academic organizations. On the student side, we kind of came a little bit later to the game. So we've just done 7 iterations of that training with over 230 students, over 45 alumni, and almost 30 faculty and staff from 28 community colleges. And the trainings had all been in person prior to 2020, but now they're all virtual, and we've maintained them virtually so that they are more accessible beyond just our geographical region. So next, just for time, I'm going to walk you really quickly through what those 2 trainings are, really quickly, because the mentor manager training is 16 hours and the student training is 12 hours currently. So there's no way I'm going to go through like all of what that actually entails, but just to give you a general sense of what it is and what is that we tried to build. So for the mentor manager side, we really wanted to provide every science professional with the training, support, and accountability that they'd need to successfully negotiate and navigate the roles, both as like a mentor, so somebody who's providing career and support, as well as a trainer, right? Someone who's an actual educator in the space, whether they see themselves that way or not, right? They're teaching and training people in that space. And then supervision, which is the one that we really saw a huge gap in. Really a lot of very supportive mentors, but maybe didn't have the frameworks and tools they need to really effectively supervise someone in order to really lead productive and healthy teams. And so this is the training. I'm not going to go through it in any kind of in depth, but just to let you know, it covers in general general responsibilities of a supervisor or a manager, how to do things like transparently set expectations, teach and train and delegate, to give effective feedback, what to do when someone isn't meeting their expectations, and how to hire inclusively. To give you a little data on that from the people who've attended, people who've attended and responded to our surveys, you can see that 92% of them immediately post-training agreed or strongly agreed that the training was a good use of their time. It was relevant to them in their organization. And I should say this is from a mix of people from academe and industry. That's really what we've been working on for the last couple of years, is to find out that this training that originally was sort of developed in an academic setting was also industry relevant. If you'd like, we're really excited that our evaluator got the Outstanding Evaluation Award for ATE this last year. So you can go and actually read the whole evaluation if you want to see, and basically see that the difference in these scales, it's basically, there's almost no difference between industry and academe. So I haven't broken it out that way, but you can go and see the evaluation report if you'd like, that it prepared them better to mentor and manage diverse trainees, that they'll implement something that they learned, they plan to, and it was needed at their organization. But more importantly, that 1 to 2 months post-training, 78% said they'd shared something from the training with someone else. And that 43% had actually changed their actions and behaviors based on the training. And that it had, most importantly, I think for our team, was that it had actually impacted procedures in their workplace. And so we were really excited about that. The trainings have been really successful in general. As you can imagine, the numbers of people that have come through the training and how well received it's been. I have a whole series of quotes. I'm not going to read them to you, but you can come back to the slides and see them if you want, from people from industry as well as UCSF faculty and faculty from other organizations. So I just want to walk you really quickly through some of the main frameworks from the training, just so you get a little taste of what we do. The mentor manager training really focuses on this mentor manager protocol and thinking about supervision and management and what are the pieces that need to be in place, which we often don't see in being put in place in academe, which is really the fundamental roles of being a supervisor, being able to set expectations, taking a baseline assessment, be able to teach, train, and delegate, being able to give kudos, corrective, and evaluative feedback. And then when people aren't meeting their expectations, they know how to recognize and reward progress and achievement. And when they are not meeting expectations, how to articulate sort of measured and fair consequences. And then all throughout that, how to handle change and conflict and how to provide appropriate support and protection. As the training really delves down deep into especially these first 3 pieces around setting expectations, teaching, training, and giving feedback. Actually, setting expectations, I won't go into detail, was the space where we really found the majority of issues would happen in an internship. If there was an issue, that's where it was around. So we have some additional tools and around that. We also really wanted to look at inclusivity and how inclusivity could actually be built into a working relationship on a practical level, sort of like what are the actions that someone was doing on a day-to-day basis to make sure they added respect, diverse voices, objectivity, leveled the playing field, and offered protection. I'm not going to go through this again. It'll be in the slides, but this is just one in like what could someone do to make create a meeting where people felt they were seen and heard and appreciated. So I will leave that to you in the future, just for respect of time. I want to let you know that I'm really excited to say or announce, I guess, that we really have obtained sustainability for the mentor manager training. UCSF has seen how valuable this is, and it is now part of an educational initiative that has just been started at UCSF. And so the training going forward, this is the picture of the website, will be offered every spring and fall virtually through UCSF and for the foreseeable future, and will be available externally for industry and academia for a fee. And that's really sort of our sustainability metric for this, which is it's been institutionalized and now will be available and offered going forward. So very excited about that. We actually are already in contract building for 19 workshops this year for organizations outside of UCSF. So that's the one side. I'm going to tell you now about the workplace navigation training and what we've developed. So again, if we would love all of our students to go work with supervisors and employers who have gone through what we think was a really good, solid management training, mentor management training. But if they haven't, and even if they have, no one's perfect. We want to make sure they all had the knowledge, skills, support, and clarity they needed to effectively assess and successfully navigate any lab environment they come into, right, to achieve their goals. And so the training that we developed is around utilizing an interview to determine a good fit, establishing themselves in a new position, managing expectations, really how to handle feedback, negotiating for what they need. So thinking about how to have real effective career conversations with the person they're working with, and then really how to harness and effectively utilize those transferable skills that we know all of our students bring to the table. But sometimes can't see clearly, so they can recognize their value as non-traditional people in a lab science space. Again, some numbers. Our major evaluation for this piece is coming out in fall, so I don't have as much detail. But from surveyed respondents, 95% agreed or strongly agreed that the training was a good use of their time and relevant to them. More importantly, 94% said that they felt there was a need for this training, and that over 90% said they would implement tools or strategies from the training. Again, a nice set of quotes. But maybe I will just read the very first one. So someone saying, a community college student saying, prior to this, I had very little idea of how to navigate a new lab, how to learn about the culture and customs of the lab. I'm new to working in the lab, and so it can be awkward. Now I have lots of tools. It's great to have a feeling of normalcy in my current experience. Right? So ways to sort of navigate that space. That's what we're hoping for with the training. So I'll tell you really quickly, again, just what it is that we're trying to achieve, or sort of a little bit of the frameworks around that training. I think a lot of us, and very reasonably so, focus on the work. But the problem is that, as we all know, we all know, our work is important. The people around us and our ability to navigate those, right? The institutions, the organization, the individuals, our boss, is what makes us successful, as often as, is really an important component of that. And so it's not that we don't think the work is important, it is, but it's part of an ecosystem that that we all need to navigate. And so the goal is to really, again, help them build situational awareness, be able to assess their environment, and then strategize in a way that they can move forward effectively, especially if they haven't necessarily been fully set up to succeed. How do they set themselves up to do that? And so we do things like really making them think about what their goals are. What do they want out of their experiences? And then once they are, and so that hopefully we have a whole session on like, how do they develop effective interview questions so they can identify if a place is actually a good place for them, and sort of recognizing where there might be gaps. And then also, once they get into that place, using that same manager protocol to think, okay, well, do I have clear expectations? Am I being taught and trained? Am I getting the feedback that I need? And if I'm not, it doesn't mean this is a bad or evil place, just that's the gap they're going to need to manage in order to succeed. And then once they've sort of identified that gap, again, really short, but then we give them sort of language and frameworks and structure to think about how they could specifically address that gap. So this is just language on like how they could open a dialogue about feedback if they're not getting feedback. So I told you these are the two sides of the training. But then on top of that, we really wanted to coach people if they took the training and then they're together in this dyad during this internship, how do we support them during that time? And so we've been building tools, our internship toolkit, for lack of a better term, to help them do that. And I'm just going to talk about two pieces of it. One, which is that we've developed a series of pulse surveys to help us monitor internships, really quick, like 5-minute surveys tops, to just check in and make sure they're thinking, do I know what's expected of me? Do I know if I met expectations? Did I get feedback? Am I getting the information that I need? And we have these, and there's examples on our website for both the intern and the mentor, it helps triage without having to do like a whole conversation to see when things might be going amiss and come in to help, but also just to remind them, okay, these are things I should know what's expected of me next week. And if I don't, how am I going to figure that out? And then at the same time, trying to help them build that type of clarity between the two individuals. Not going to go into a lot of detail, but there is information on our site, and currently have a publication under review, hopefully will be coming out soon, about an expectation clarity tool that really is a spreadsheet on just outlining these things around expectations, metrics for success, right? Like, how are they going to be evaluated? How are people taking them? How are their current knowledge, skills, and abilities being assessed by their mentor? And then what strategies and information do they have to move towards the goals and expectations that their mentor has? Again, I apologize going through quickly, but this tool this expectation clarity tool has been really effective in our internship program. In particular, for interns, almost half have said that it directly using this one tool has positively impacted the success of their internship. And for over 60% of them, it increased their confidence as an intern. And it's a tool they can use going forward to even just, again, sort of outline what do I know about what's expected of me? What do I know about how I'm going to be evaluated? What do I know about what resources and tools and training are available to me? And when there's something I don't know, then I understand what that gap is, and I can think about how I'm going to get that information so that I can succeed. So that was a lot, maybe very quickly, but we're really committed to this and would like to do what we'd like to do next. But I just outlined that. We've thought about the mentor manager training and really have built sustainability around that, or at least a good step forward, I think, in sustainability. For the workplace navigation, we would really like to develop a sustainable asynchronous training that's available. Initially, we'd like to do that in Canvas, which in California is the learning management system for all 116 colleges, community colleges. And it is, I know, for lots of other community colleges, but thinking about also how it could be built into other LMS systems that would just be free and accessible, and people could take the pieces that seem to be appropriate for their work-based learning, apprenticeship, internship program, and have these tools available to their students. I would really love to do that. We really would like to continue to really support any new or developing work-based learning programs, biotech community college work-based learning programs. We're currently helping to support the one at Solano Community College and a brand new internship program that's just been developed only for community college students at Genentech. Really excited about that. And then figuring out ways that we can either reduced fee amounts or even potentially for free provide the training, especially the mentor manager training, to employers who want to work with community college students as an incentive to bring them on, but also professional development for them to improve work-based learning. I know we're really coming to the end of the time. I just want to let you know that we do have 2 upcoming trainings, one mentor manager training coming up in April. It starts at the very end of this month. And there's free spots for faculty, community college faculty and staff. We have one more workshop for the workplace navigation next Friday. Anybody's interested, happy to talk, but I'll be quiet. So there's 7 minutes of Q&A.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you both to Barry and Karen for their presentations on their ATE projects. We have about 7 minutes for a Q&A. If you would like to either raise your hand, or I do notice that there are some questions that Linnea, you put in the chat.
Yeah, but who else? I'm just really big on writing questions in chat.
You might as well go through and ask them in person. I'm going to turn the recording off here.
So Barry, I just wanted to clarify. So you have a dual credit program in the high schools?
No, we have I don't know if I'm still
Enroll.
familiar trying